So the SRAW Nerf, a nerf I wasn't really impressed by when I read the recent CTE patch notes. Over the past 2 days or so, I've been testing out the SRAW on CTE and comparing it to retail BF4, as well as talking to various air vehicle pilots just to try and understand the justification for the nerfs and to work out if the SRAW is in a really bad place or is it still in a good way. And I also decided to get up close and personal with the SRAW using the cinematic tools, so I hope you guys enjoyed a few cinematic clips here. It's actually really interesting, the freeze time moments in Battlefield 4. You notice a lot of detail you may never have noticed. Also, by the way, yes, that is the SRAW missile up close. Was interesting to see what it looks like in detail. But anyway, the main reason for this video is I want to go over every feature of the SRAW that has seen nerfs. Some aren't that bad, but one that's really killed it is a turn-in radius. It's nothing like how it is at the moment in retail BF4, and I really do hope this is just a initial balancing nerf and hopefully will be tweaked because it's just too much of a nerf in my opinion. First of all, I think it's fair to say the SRAW is a very skill-based weapon, and so I really do think some of the nerfs are uncalled for. I don't see the need for them, but there's a few points I do agree with in fairness to game balance, but the nerfs I disagree with I'll talk about later in the video. First of all, the range of the SRAW has been reduced. In CTE I did some tests and it seems like the new range value is about 450 meters or so, give or take 10 meters. I know a lot of people have complained about the range just being way over the top. You can take out a sniper or any infantry from across the map if you aim correctly, or any vehicles that are staying in one place, which causes some game balancing concerns because as an engineer you shouldn't be able to accurately snipe targets from across the map. And how can land vehicles fight back if they're being shot from such a long distance away? That doesn't really make logical sense. So if a part of the SRAW needs to be nerfed for the sake of game balance, then reducing its range seems fair to me. In fact, I'll much rather have that than the turn-in radius nerf. Also, another concern for people is how it can take out infantry behind a wall or cover, which kind of goes back to the whole range nerf, but I think it's more to do with the next nerf. Splash damage has been reduced, but I think it must have only been reduced by a small amount, because in CTE I can still kill an enemy behind a wall, or if it's not a kill I can still inflict huge amounts of damage into him. And once again, if the SRAW really does need some nerfs, then I'm okay with whatever reduced splash damage value is. But let's talk about the nerf that I think DICE have gone way too far with, and I hope they reconsider the nerf. The turn-in radius of the SRAW missile has been increased by an insane amount. I'm going to show you guys a quick comparison. This is retail BF4. I know it might be hard to see the missile, but this is a simple test that involves a player firing the SRAW, then counting to 3 seconds, then immediately aims down into the ground. And as we can see, the missile not only turns quick, but it pretty much ended up back where the player is actually standing, which, like I said, is how sharp the SRAW missile turns at the moment in retail BF4. Let's look at CTE with the turn-in radius nerf. Just look at how bad that is. I don't know about you guys, but I think that is just way over the top. I mean, it doesn't even come close to what it's like at the moment in retail BF4. I think the problem is people need to realise before deeming the SRAW overpowered, there's a lot of negatives and skill involved in using the SRAW, and I've seen a lot of air pilots saying that the SRAW is easy mode, which in fact it's so far from easy mode. It's not as simple as just point, aim and destroy. To use the SRAW, you need to calculate where the rocket is heading to, also where the air vehicle is heading. You need to work out the distance between the rocket and the air vehicle, then make sure it's at the right angle so it actually hits a target, while at the same time paying attention to your minimap to make sure you don't get shot from players, and not to mention you need to be exposed and not behind cover to guide the missile to the target. And this is made even worse because the SRAW travels extremely slow. And I think people really need to understand those negatives before saying it's completely overpowered or it's easy mode. I think DICE haven't really thought about these changes as well, because one of the nerfs is damage to the lock-on version of the SRAW missile, which makes no sense at all because it requires more than one player to execute. And having this ability gives incentive to team play or working together as a team. This contradicts DICE LA's plans of wanting Battlefield 4 to be all about team play as much as possible. So nerfing the auto lock-on damage doesn't make any sense from a team play perspective. I've spoken to about 12 air vehicle pilots that seem to have reasonable skill. I asked them, how many times have you been killed by the SRAW? Pretty much every single player said, not that much. So I don't know where DICE are getting their feedback from, but I'm not seeing a universal hatred towards the SRAW, from the air vehicle pilots at least. In fact, I'm sure most of them will say auto lock-on weapons are more of an issue, which brings me to my next point. If these nerfs go into retail BF4, I can imagine less people are going to use the SRAW. So if there's an attack heli pilot or a scout heli pilot that's going on a 40-0 killing spree, just completely dominating the battlefield, people probably won't turn to the SRAW and try and take care of him. Those people are probably going to use a lock-on weapon to take care of that player, which, as far as I can tell, is more of an issue to air pilots than the SRAW. I hate using lock-on weapons. I've always gravitated towards the SRAW or the dumb firing weapons because I like the skill factor and I don't feel bad for killing any air pilots with these weapons, and it's rewarding to get a kill with weapons that require a certain degree of skill. But if the SRAW nerfs go into retail BF4 and I see an attack heli or scout heli pilot going on a complete rampage, I'm probably going to have to pull out the stinger. Or if the player is flying close to the ground, I'll probably just use the RPG, which is something I really don't want to be doing. I don't consider myself a master at the SRAW, but I've had some really good plays with it, and if you do manage to go on an air vehicle killing spree, or you destroy any kind of air vehicles from, let's say, 400 meters away, then you deserve that kill, and it's probably one of the best feelings I've had in Battlefield 4, because it just doesn't happen all the time, which it seems like some people think it does. Also, what makes this worse is with the recent buffs to the attack heli, to how quick it can move around, and pretty much its overall agility has been increased. This is another indirect nerf to the SRAW, which makes the situation worse. So to summarize, if the SRAW really needs to be nerfed for the sake of team balance, I'm trying to be as fair as possible. I think just reduce its maximum range and reduce the splash damage. That should solve the issue of the SRAW being used to snipe infantry or vehicles across the map, and also killing infantry from behind cover from a long distance away. But what nerfs I think should be undone is a damage reduction to the lock-on version of the SRAW, because it doesn't make sense for team play, and the turning radius nerf needs to be completely undone. I know the SRAW missile can turn pretty sharp, especially when comparing to its real life counterpart. It's probably nothing like it, but at the end of the day, BF4 is a game, and with all the negatives that SRAW has, I think it having a sharp turning radius is perfectly justifiable. So if you guys have any better ideas on how to balance the SRAW, please by all means try and leave the feedback on the CTE forums, or let me know, and maybe if I get some good suggestions I can compile it all together and maybe pass it on to the CTE devs. But anyway, that's the end of this video. Let me know if you agree or disagree with the SRAW nerfs. Feel free to subscribe to my channel for future content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.